Our first speaker, United States Congresswoman Suzanne Bonamici, has represented the 1st Congressional District of Oregon since 2012. As a member of the Committee on Education and the Workforce in Congress, she is dedicated to setting national policies that give educators and students the resources they need to succeed. Congresswoman Bonamici served a lead role in the passage of the bipartisan Every Child Succeeds Act, the ESSA, which replaces No Child Left Behind and creates new K-12 education policies. She is also focused on making college more affordable and closing the skills gap. Congresswoman Bonamici is the founder and co-chair of the bipartisan Congressional STEAM Caucus, which aims to encourage innovation and creative thinking by integrating art and design with science, technology, engineering, and math education. Please join me in welcoming Congresswoman Suzanne Bonamici.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Thank you for that kind introduction. So I want to thank OSU for hosting and the Corvallis Community Collaboration for inviting me to speak. And thank you all for spending part of this incredibly beautiful sunny day with us today. I'm really honored to be here. We have a great panel, diverse panel, and all the community members, some professors at this inaugural STEM to STEAM Symposium. And I'm here because of the importance of education, especially well-rounded education. Somebody asked me how I got interested in this. I've always been interested in education. I was a parent volunteer in classrooms when my kids were going through school, always wondering, where are the art classes? Where are the music classes? I stood on the Capitol steps in Salem, waving Save Our School signs. And you know what happens when there are budget cuts? What's the first thing to go? Typically, the arts. That's very short-sighted. I was raised in a home with a mom who was a piano teacher and did some painting, and I always had art and music around me. And I knew how important that was, and I could tell in the students' faces and in their engagement when I did things like volunteering for the drama club, volunteering to help teach art because there was no art teacher. Really makes a difference and gives students an opportunity to do something where they're showing their own uniqueness and helps them with confidence and collaboration. I served in the state legislature. I worked hard to decrease testing because what happened through No Child Left Behind, which I don't know anybody who liked No Child Left Behind the way it became, well-intentioned, but put too much focus on what is tested. And because arts and music were not tested, those were often cut and the focus was just on the tested subjects. I couldn't get that done from the state legislature because No Child Left Behind was federal policy. So I was one of the main reasons I ran for Congress. And now in Congress, I, as you heard in the introduction, serve on the Education Committee as well as the Science Committee. And have made education a priority, giving every child a well-rounded education that is enriching and giving them an opportunity to succeed, whether they pursue college, career, whatever they do. So why STEAM? Well, I'm on the Education Committee and on the Science Committee. I kept hearing so much about STEM. I've actually had people say to me, we shouldn't give student loans to anyone who's not in a STEM field. STEM is not enough. We need to engage more students. We need to prepare them to be innovators, leaders, creative problem solvers, collaborators, risk takers, critical thinkers for the future. So I co-founded the Congressional STEAM Caucus, which is now up to 82 bipartisan members who support integrating the arts and design into STEM. STEM education engages both halves of the brain. Incorporating arts and design into STEM can reach students traditionally unrepresented in STEM fields. We all know the kid who says, I'm not good at math. Maybe some of you were that student going through school, but oftentimes those are kids who happen to excel at art. STEAM education reveals the connection, and there are many, between art and math, for example, music and math, art and science, makes subjects more accessible and helps students thrive. And STEAM really works. There are 25 school districts in the congressional district I'm honored to represent, and I regularly spend time in schools talking with students. I was in 2 high schools yesterday. It gives you hope for the future to talk to high school students. And there are visible differences in the schools that focus on getting to good test scores and the schools that focus on STEAM. So there are 2 of the 8 nationally recognized STEAM schools in Oregon. I recently toured them with the chair of the National Endowment for the Arts, Jane Chu. Highland Park Middle School in Beaverton. We walked in the door, the 7th grade jazz band was playing. They were really good, 7th grade jazz band. We sat and listened to students describe things that they had worked on. There was an all-school mural project where all the students worked on designing murals of the 7 wonders of Oregon and then worked together to create them. They had the special ed students helping with getting the glass onto the murals, and everyone was involved. One girl described a stop-action animation film that she had made. It was just amazing to see how engaged they were. Quotama Elementary School in Hillsboro, students working on a project about salmon using recycled materials, drawing shells that they're looking at with jeweler's loop. And when I asked one of them, "Are you an artist or a scientist today?" she looked up at me and said, "I'm both." And a music class where students were using math skills to collaborate and create music. And one example that I had seen there earlier, because Quotama's been a STEAM school for a long time, I was visiting a 3rd and 4th grade class, and they were growing worms and talking about how worms erode the soil, and the soil is dirt, and the dirt becomes clay. And then they took the clay and they made pottery that they glazed and fired. So instead of saying, now you're studying science and now you're studying art, it was all connected. Those are some engaged students. Chair Chu from the National Endowment for the Arts, who happens to be a very talented artist herself, was incredibly impressed at how passionate and engaged the students were, and really the seriousness of what they did. 6th grade students who made and narrated for us a film about cell division. It was incredible to see their confidence and their joy in learning. First Robotics is another program that is a great example of STEAM. It's math and engineering, but design and collaboration are a big part of that. This year the competition was Stronghold. I don't know if any of you went. It was phenomenal. Teams were incorporating arts and design. They had costumes, music. There was an all-girls team that was wonderful. You don't see that kind of engagement in schools where the focus is on test scores. STEAM and engaging the students in the arts is reminiscent more of what happens in the real world. Many careers require a varied knowledge and a variety of skills. Now, I have to admit that when I first started the STEAM caucus, there was a lot of hesitation about STEM to STEAM. But we have to work really hard to encourage people to look at education more holistically. Employers want innovators. They want problem solvers. I tour businesses as well as schools. I have never once had a business owner say to me, "We're looking for a really good test taker." You know, they want people who can come up with new ideas, new ways to solve problems, people who can collaborate, work together. That's what happens with STEAM. At our caucus briefing last year in Washington, D.C., we had leaders from Boeing, Intel, and Lockheed Martin all talk about why they need creativity in their workforce. So that's progress being made. Of course, we need scientists, developers, and engineers, but successful tech companies have other needs too. Tech companies need people to design and market and communicate. Chair Chu from the National Endowment for the Arts was telling us about this program at Kohler. You know, it's a company that makes toilets and faucets, right? They have this highly competitive artist in residence program where they bring artists in to design new products. It's a great program. Apple, you know, Apple's successful not just because of the technology, so much of it is about the design. The bottom line is that STEAM enhances STEM, it does not replace it. So what does that mean in terms of policy? Last year, I was very involved in rewriting No Child Left Behind, and we ended up with the Every Student Succeeds Act. I got to stand with President Obama when he signed the bill. The student who introduced the president that day, he could have been a commercial for STEAM. He was a 12-year-old student, and he started talking about why he wants to be an engineer, and he loves his math and science classes, but he's so glad he goes to a school that has the arts because he loves his drama class as well. I don't know where they found him, but I was so glad that he was the one who introduced President Obama that day. So the new law, this Every Student Succeeds Act, restores more flexibility to states and school districts, moves away from punitive policies that label schools as failing, reduces the high stakes associated with testing. It included my bill to repeal unnecessary tests that proliferated under No Child Left Behind, so students can be focused on learning, not testing. And also, I was able to get into that law an amendment that encourages STEAM. It makes clear to educators that they can use federal resources for well-rounded education, and that includes integrating arts and music into STEM. So it's the first time that STEAM has been recognized in federal policy, and it was adopted unanimously. People think we always fight about things, but that was adopted unanimously. Members on both sides of the aisle remarked about the value of arts education. So I was really excited about that step. I want to recognize someone who helped a lot with the whole STEAM movement academically, and that's Dr. John Maeda. He's a former MIT Media Lab professor who went on to be the president of RISD, the Rhode Island School of Design. And he came to the Capitol many times and got us going with the STEAM caucus, spoke at a couple of our briefings, attended our standing room only kickoff event. And he talks about how when he was at MIT, he was always advocating for the arts when he was at MIT. And then when he got to RISD, he was advocating for incorporating arts into STEM. As we think about academic research, the lessons to draw from what we know about STEAM and Dr. Maeda's advocacy raises some questions. So what are the areas of potential? What can we do with this? Here's an example. Can we add a design expert to a research team on hazard resilience, for example, to teach us how to effectively communicate risks to the public? I have a Seaside High School in the district I represent, and I was just out there recently, and the students made a movie to help communicate why they need to move their school out of the tsunami zone. They filmed themselves starting to walk, and at the end of the 15 minutes, which is all the warning they get, they showed in the film that they're still in the tsunami zone, and it was a very effective way of communicating that through their movie. So in 2013, the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities, and the National Science Foundation all entered into a partnership to coordinate support for interdisciplinary projects. We have somebody here who helped with that effort. You'll hear from him shortly. This is an example of the focus on support for innovative interdisciplinary projects that draw from sciences, arts, and humanities. This is major progress being made in elevating the conversation and why it's so important. So our country faces many challenges, and we need people who can come up with new ideas, new ways to solve problems, people who know not only how to answer questions, but know what questions to ask. Integrating arts and design into STEM can help the next generation of leaders meet these challenges. So I've worked hard in Congress on conveying the importance of STEAM because it can help grow the leaders, innovators, and creative problem solvers, risk takers, and critical thinkers that we need for the future. But I want to emphasize the bipartisan nature of this. I mentioned that the caucus is bipartisan, but so is the growing support for STEAM. And I'll tell you, just 2 days ago, there was a governor of the state of Ohio. Some of you may have heard of him because he's running for a different job right now, Governor Kasich. Well, he gave his State of the State address in Ohio just 2 days ago, and here's what he said. We will also recommend expanding what's been known as STEM education to all grade levels. Of course, we all know the letters in STEM stand for science, technology, engineering, and math. But personally, I like to call it STEAM. STEAM education to add a capital A for the arts. Any student who's going to succeed later in life, including someone choosing a technical career, is going to need creative skills and know how to apply critical thinking. Those skills are best developed by exposure to the arts, science, technology, engineering, math, and the arts. Then he added, Governor Kasich said, arts community, did you ever think you'd see a conservative Republican ever say this? I can't believe I'm quoting Governor Kasich, but I am. So But we believe it, he said, because these are all essential for success in 21st century careers. And I say that because this is not and should not be a partisan issue. It should be something that everybody can support, because when we look ahead to the future, this is what we need. And we need education that prepares students for those 21st century careers. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I look forward to the questions, and thanks again for being here.